What's going on, guys? It is your boy here with the fantasy breakdown, coming at you with our um week 11 waiver wires, and some of the players I think you should maybe look at, uh, given bye weeks and injuries and who could be coming back, and just based off of prior performances. We are going to go ahead and get right into it with CJ Stroud. Now, I think he is worth keeping an eye on. His concussion protocol, and if he clears it this week or not. And if he does, he's definitely someone I would look at maybe picking up if you are in a deeper league or in real desperate need of a quarterback. In his last full matchup, which was against the 49ers, he had 21.7 fantasy points. Now, that is a production that we could see from him this week, if not a little bit more. If he is healthy and he does end up playing against the Titans. Now, if Stroud is not playing against the Titans, I think Davis Mills to be worth looking at. Last week, he was the fantasy quarterback 1 in the matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Mills could definitely play like he did again this week against the Titans, but that is only if Stroud does not clear the concussion protocol. But if Stroud does, I will look at picking him up. So far on the season, CJ Stroud is averaging 15.1 fantasy points a game. He has a total of 121 fantasy points with 11 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Next up, we have Tyler Algier, and I have Tyler Algier on here because he looks like he is the Falcons' top rushing option when it comes to playing in the red zone and within that within the 5-yard within the 5-yard line. Now, last week alone in week 10, Tyler Algier had 5 red zone carries to Bijan Robinson's 1 carry in the red zone. Now, it definitely looks like that, even though Bijan Robinson is arguably the best player in football right now, it's looking like the Falcons maybe don't want to risk a injury to their star player, which makes sense. And Algier does have all 3 of the Falcons' rushing touchdowns in the red zone since week 7, but he is very touchdown dependent. But with looking at if he does keep getting the ball and getting looks in the red zone, so far on the season, Tyler Algier is averaging 7.8 fantasy points a game with a total of 70 fantasy points and 6 touchdowns. Next up, we have Tez Johnson. Now, Tez Johnson is a bit interesting because he is having a really good season for someone that was drafted in the 7th round. But it also makes sense because Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are both out, and we're not going to be getting Mike Evans back until at least the last game of the season or the penultimate game. However, Tez Johnson is averaging 1 touchdown in his last 4 games. So that's like essentially a touchdown a game. And he has finished as a top 20 receiver in 2 of those 4 games. Now, Tez Johnson is leading the team with 6 red zone targets since week 6. And I think he's someone you should maybe look at, considering all the injuries at receiver that the Buccaneers have. And so far, has 8.6 fantasy points a game, 69 total fantasy points, and 4 touchdowns. Next up on our list, we have Jerry Jeudy. Now, Jerry Jeudy is a bit interesting. he has been a bit disappointing so far this season, but after the week 9 bye week, he did have a season high of 19.8 fantasy points, and he led the team with 12 targets after seeing the ball go his way 6 times in the last 2 weeks. And I think if that production that he had from week 10 does keep up, we could finally see him start to look like the top 20 fantasy receiver that he was just last season. And it looks like that things might be clicking with him and Dylan Gabriel. Now, so far on the season here, we have Jerry Jeudy with 7.5 fantasy points a game, only 67.5 fantasy points and 1 touchdown. Next up on our list, we have Dalton Schultz. Now, Dalton Schultz is a bit interesting as he's a bit interesting because he is being out targeted only by Trey McBride since week 7, and he is tied with Trey McBride for most catches by a tight end since week 7. Now, in his last 4 games, he is averaging 13.8 fantasy points, and I think it should definitely be on for fantasy rosters out there. For the people that might be looking for picking up a tight end or just need someone to throw in the flex spot, I think Dalton Schultz is your guy. Right now, so far on the season, Schultz is averaging 10.5 fantasy points a game with 94.8 fantasy points and 1 touchdown. Next up, we have Cade Otton. Now, Cade Otton has only 4 tight ends that have more receiving yards than him since week 5. And he does draw a pretty tough matchup against the Bills, who look like to be putting a pretty big lockdown on tight ends as a whole. However, Cade Otton has been averaging 12.2 fantasy points a game in his last 5 games. And it seems that as the season progresses, he does get targeted more and more by Baker Mayfield. And who knows, Cade Otton could be that first tight end to break out and have a pretty good game against the Bills this week. Now, so far on the season, Cade Otton is averaging, 7.8 fantasy points a game, 70.3 total fantasy points, and 0 touchdowns. And who knows, maybe we could see that he could finally get that touchdown this week against Buffalo. Next up on our list, we have the Houston Texans defense. Now, I know it's a bit weird to be seeing defenses in a video like this. However, I think they are one of the, if you don't have them and they are out there on waivers, I think they are one of the safest defenses to start this week, especially playing against the Titans. Now, last time they played the Titans, had a pretty good game. I think definitely double-digit fantasy points, if I'm remembering correctly. However, last week against the Jaguars, they did give up a season-high 29 total points to the Jaguars, but they do still have one of the top defenses in the league, and we could definitely see that pace keep up. Now, with defenses that play the Titans, they on average finish within the top 10 scoring that week among all defenses when it comes to fantasy. Now, for the Texans here, I did not get their average points per game, it is a little late, and I could not do the math. But so far on the season, for their stats, they do have 93 fantasy points, 22 sacks, 6 forced fumble, 4 fumble recovers, 10 interceptions, and 2 total touchdowns. One of those touchdowns coming last week on a last-second strip sack for the touchdown to give Houston the win. Now, the Texans defense here is pretty interesting. They are probably one of the better defenses in the league. And definitely someone I would look at picking up if they were available in my league. And this is going to conclude everyone that we here at the Fantasy Breakdown are looking at picking up for off of waivers this week, and definitely some players that I think you should maybe keep an eye on as well. Now, definitely let me know in the comments down below who you guys are targeting and why. And if you guys do have any questions about the season and who else you should pick up that is not on the list, feel free to also let me know in the comment section down below, and I will get back to you in regards to that as soon as I am able to. This has been the Fantasy Breakdown, and I hope you guys have a great week, and I will catch you next time.